gold just hit $5,000 an ounce. The Canadian Prime Minister is making deals with China. And Trump is threatening to slap 100% tariffs on America's closest neighbor. What you're watching right now is the beginning of an economic earthquake that's going to shake your wallet whether you're in New York, Toronto, or Beijing. Let me break down what's really happening and why this matters to you. Here's the situation in plain English. Canada's new leader, Mark Carney, just decided to cut tariffs on Chinese electric cars from 100% down to just 6%. This means Chinese EVs can now flood into Canada at prices American car makers simply cannot compete with. And Trump? He's absolutely furious. He went on Truth Social saying the last thing the world needs is China taking over Canada, and he threatened Canada with massive tariffs if they make any deal with China. But here's what most people don't understand. This isn't just about cars. This is about who controls the future of North America's economy. Let me explain why both sides are playing with fire. Think about it this way. For decades, Canada has been like America's warehouse. The US gets cheap oil, cheap steel, cheap aluminum, basically everything needed to keep the American economy running smoothly. Canada sends over 4 million barrels of oil to the US every day. That's heavy crude oil that American refineries are specifically designed to process. Before all these tariff wars started, the US was getting this oil at discounts of 10 to 20%, sometimes even more. It's been a sweet deal for American consumers. Now Trump says if Canada makes a trade deal with China, he'll put a 100% tariff on everything Canada sends to the US. That means Canadian oil, steel, and aluminum would instantly become twice as expensive. Your gas prices? They go up. Building a house? More expensive. Buying appliances? More expensive. Everything at Walmart gets pricier. Trump thinks this threat will force Canada to back down. But here's the problem with that strategy. If Trump actually follows through, Canada won't just sit there and take the hit. They'll do what any rational country would do. They'll find new buyers, and guess who's waiting with open arms? China. Canada already has a pipeline called Trans Mountain that ships oil directly to Asia. Right now, about 60% of that oil goes to China. If the US blocks Canadian oil with tariffs, all of it goes to China, probably at a discount. So Beijing gets cheaper oil while American consumers pay more at the gas pump. That's not winning, that's shooting yourself in the foot. And it gets worse for American workers. The US auto industry is already struggling. General Motors just shut down some electric vehicle production in Canada because Americans' cars are too expensive and people aren't buying them. Canadian consumers are already switching to Korean and Mexican cars. Now imagine Chinese EVs coming in at half the price with better technology. Ford, GM, and even Tesla would lose massive market share. We're talking about potentially 50,000 American auto jobs disappearing because Canada is 15% of all US auto exports. But let's talk about something most people aren't paying attention to, the AI boom. You know, all those data centers that tech companies are building for artificial intelligence? Goldman Sachs estimates that companies will spend $530 billion on these data centers in 2026. What are data centers made of? Tons of steel and aluminum for the structure, cooling systems, and electrical components. If Trump puts tariffs on Canadian metals, building these data centers becomes way more expensive. That means the entire AI industry, which is basically holding up the US economy right now, takes a massive hit. Here's where China wins big. If the US pushes Canada away, Canada has to sell more to China. That gives China access to cheap oil, cheap metals, and everything else they need for their factories. Chinese manufacturers already have lower costs than almost anyone in the world. Give them even cheaper raw materials and they become unstoppable. They'll dominate markets in Africa, Central Asia, Latin America, everywhere. And here's the kicker. When China trades with these countries, they increasingly use their own currency, the renminbi, not the US dollar. Every trade that happens without dollars weakens America's financial power globally. The markets are already seeing this. Gold hitting $5,000 isn't random. It's a warning signal. Investors are losing faith in the dollar system. Since 2000, gold has outperformed the S&P 500 by 2.5 times, even when you include dividends. That tells you smart money sees trouble ahead. So who really wins if Trump goes nuclear on Canada? In the short term, everyone loses. Canada's economy takes a hit because the US is their biggest customer. The US faces higher prices, potential job losses, and a more expensive AI build-out. But in the long term, China emerges stronger. They get access to Canadian resources, their manufacturers become even more competitive globally, and the dollar loses more of its dominance in international trade. Trump thinks he's protecting America, but he might be accidentally pushing Canada into China's arms permanently. And once that happens, there's no going back. The question isn't whether this will affect you. It already is. The question is how bad it gets before someone blinks.